My 26M boyfriend was slacking with his online classes and I caught him stalking my friend Tom, then found bikini pics of her on his phone. I think she's cute, he admitted, but it hurt more that his behavior stemmed from a porn addiction. Am I making a mistake giving him another chance? Hello, I began dating my boyfriend in July of last year, 2024, and everything seemed perfect from the beginning. We had met 2 years earlier and started becoming closer recently because we wanted to collaborate on a comic. We connected over our shared passion for the arts, video games, humor, and so on. Our interests aligned so well that it felt completely natural to become romantically involved. The first few months passed quickly. I adore his family and my mother, the only close immediate family I have, adores him too. We discuss marriage, having children, and all the charming couple activities that come with new love. We even traveled to New York City last September. I truly envisioned myself in this relationship for the long haul. We would see each other almost every day, even though I manage 3 jobs all part-time, but they total around 40 to 50 hours each week and have been living independently since I was 19. However, this never interfered with my personal life or other friendships. I still spent time with my friends and my mother quite frequently, and he often joined us. Likewise, I cherish spending time with his friends and family. I managed to balance all of this while also staying on top of my work and responsibilities. I would like to introduce my friend Tom. I have been friends with Tom since high school, and although I would not consider him my closest friend, he is still someone I communicate with and see quite often. My boyfriend met Tom for the first time before we began dating and has only seen him maybe twice since then. So in total, he has interacted with Tom about 3 times, all of which occurred around last summer. He did not behave any differently towards Tom than towards my other friends, so I never thought anything of it. A brief note about my boyfriend. He lives with his family, has a remote job about 5 hours each week, and was participating in an online certification program until a week ago. In December, we agreed to limit our time together to weekends so he could concentrate on his online certificate program. He had 12 months to complete 10 courses, and he was barely on the second one. The deadline for all the assignments was approaching in the following month, and with a monthly extension fee of $500, I wanted to ensure he was prioritizing his work as well. I made myself available to help with anything he needed and encouraged him to focus. Update: he never progressed past the second course. With all of this in mind, you can imagine how much free time this guy had. So what did he do with it? He played video games all night, watched pornography, and began obsessively looking at my friend Tom. Last year, I discovered adult content on my boyfriend's phone while we were browsing through his phone gallery together. It was an old video from before we started dating, but the fact that he still had it hurt me. It hurt even more when he admitted that it was an old high school friend of his named Jerry. He had mentioned Jerry before, but only in the context of discussing her art when we browsed through her profile together. Anyway, since it was an old video he had forgotten about, he deleted it, and we never really discussed it again. Through this, he confessed to struggling with a pornography addiction for a long time. We talked about it, and it seemed quite debilitating. He mentioned that he would look at pornography daily and objectify and stare at other girls to the point that it became habitual. Although this concerned me, he claimed that it had diminished since he broke up with his ex-girlfriend, and I believed him. I also felt confident because we had a fairly active sex life, so I thought that was satisfying his needs. Months passed, and by the time December arrived, I began to notice a change in our relationship. But I started to attribute it to his focus on his certificate program and him spending more time at home. I realized he became quite unresponsive when I texted him after returning home from work at night, which is usually when he is most active. He struggled to respond, texting me once every hour. I knew he was playing video games during these times because I could see him active on his Discord server with his friends. As days went on, it reached a point where I felt ignored. I stopped receiving daily good night and good morning texts, and at times, it felt like I was pleading for a response back. I do not own a car, but I assisted him with some payments on a used car, and we had agreed that it would be our car. Therefore, I expected him to keep his word when he said he would pick me up from work. However, he flaked on me many times because he had fallen asleep or was occupied with something else. Given his packed schedule, I could only imagine what he was busy doing. Since our agreement was still to only see each other on weekends, I ran errands alone during the week. This included, but was not limited to, doing our laundry at the laundromat, walking 30 minutes to the local grocery store, and frequently cleaning up after the mess he left at my apartment. I did all this because I loved him and wanted our weekend time to be undisturbed. Eventually, it felt like my efforts were not being reciprocated. As a result, I started to feel paranoid and began scrutinizing every little detail. The first thing I noticed was how my friend Tom would always appear first in his Instagram stories, even before his family. He consistently liked her stories, but he did that with everyone, so I did not think much of it. Then he began mentioning little things about her, just side comments like, "Oh, this reminds me of Tom," or "Oh, this reminds me of the time Tom said this." I found it odd. He had only met her a couple of times, and that was last year. He mentioned her more than any of my other friends, whom he saw at least once a month. I then observed that he would like Tom's posts immediately after she posted them. I would see his username in the likes, and the post was only up for maybe an hour at most. Initially, I thought I was being paranoid. I should mention that I struggle significantly with low self-esteem, and both Tom and Jerry are very conventionally attractive. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago and things continued to feel off. My boyfriend appeared perpetually distracted, and anyone with any sense could tell something was amiss. One day, I asked if I could use his phone to search for something. When I looked at his Instagram search bar, I saw my friend Tom at the top. For some reason, he had been viewing her profile, and I wanted to know why. Call it intuition. He said, "Oh, she posted something on her story, and I wanted to see it again." The story was nothing significant, just a song with a cool image in the background. I asked if he had feelings for her. He said no. I knew he was lying to some degree, but since he had somewhere to be and I was busy working, I let it go. Things were tense afterward, but his sister's birthday was approaching, and I did not want to ruin the mood. This incident took place 2 Fridays ago. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my boyfriend and all of his siblings. We were all making clay magnets, sharing good laughs and good food. I finished my magnet and remembered I had a drawing due for a client the following day. I had left my iPad at home, so I asked my boyfriend if I could use his. He agreed, and I went into his room to start working. I noticed his gallery widget flashing images on his home screen, and I saw a particularly cute picture of him with his niece. I clicked on it to see more pictures of him and his family. To my surprise, the moment I opened the gallery, I noticed 2 screenshots of my friend in a suggestive pose in a bikini. The screenshots were taken on the Tuesday before his sister's birthday, just 2 days before I inquired about why he had been searching her profile. My heart raced and I called my boyfriend into his room to show him something. He saw what I was looking at, shut the door, and immediately began apologizing. I asked him all the questions, what, when, and of course why. He admitted that he thinks she is cute. I began to cry uncontrollably, which I feel genuinely embarrassed about in retrospect. He confessed to frequently looking at her profile, but he insisted it was nothing beyond that. The reason he took those screenshots was that they were part of a slideshow flashing across the screen. He claimed he never engaged in any sexual acts regarding her, but I remain uncertain about that. I confronted him vigorously. I told him he was a grown man without a real job, that his mind was so consumed by pornography and video games that he couldn't even focus on completing simple math problems for an online class. I emphasized how much of a deadbeat he was for sleeping all day and leaving me to deal with his messes at my apartment. There was much more to say, but I'll spare you the details. That was the first time I genuinely got angry with him, and the first time in a long while I had truly been mad at anyone. I understand having crushes and fleeting feelings for someone. I mean, we are not blind, right? But I had felt so unloved over the past couple of months and had put in a great deal of effort to demonstrate how much I cared for him, yet he had failed me. He chose to focus his attention on another girl instead, someone who barely knows he exists. I suppose it hurt the most because he had lied to me. He said there was nothing to it when I first brought it up, which was untrue. I admittedly looked through his phone afterward, because he allowed me to, and discovered that he had a Twitter account where he was viewing Jerry's adult content on a daily basis. I did not mention this to him, wanting to see if he would admit it, but he did not. And when I say daily, I mean he viewed it in public when he was with his friends when we were together, while I was at work, and indiscriminately in other situations. I will give him credit. I saw that he deleted it the night after this situation was revealed. All of this brings us to where we are now. It seems this has been a significant wake-up call for him. From the beginning, it appeared my boyfriend had no real aspirations or goals. He has been showing up more than ever. He picks me up from work daily, cooks for me, cleans up after himself, and even secured a full-time job within 2 weeks. I acknowledge this is above and beyond. However, I wish it hadn't taken such a tumultuous situation for him to get his life together. He told me that he never stopped loving me, that he was simply in a dark place where he couldn't find the energy to love himself or appreciate those around him. Consequently, he fell back into his old habits of viewing pornography and objectifying individuals. I partially agree. He hadn't even been creating art at that time, and it was disheartening to observe. I guess a part of me feels guilty for not recognizing this sooner as well. So I presume I am giving him another chance. We are currently taking a no-contact break for a few days to truly reflect on our feelings for each other and process everything that has transpired independently. I am reaching out here to seek advice and general opinions. What would you do? How would you feel? Has anything similar ever happened to you? Any advice is appreciated. Summary: my 23F boyfriend, 26M, lied to me when I confronted him about why he was obsessively checking my friend's profile. I later inadvertently found screenshots of my friend's bikini photos on my boyfriend's iPad. I became upset because I noticed he had been emotionally absent in our relationship, and my efforts were not reciprocated. He has no real job and primarily sleeps and plays video games all day. He claims there were no romantic feelings involved and that he was in a difficult place. He has struggled with a pornography addiction for most of his life and has recently relapsed. Since this situation came to light, he has been more present than ever in our relationship. I think I am giving him one more chance to prove himself. Is it worth it? Story 2. My girlfriend claims I don't love her enough because I can't afford to shower her with gifts. I'm sick of waiting for you to become successful, she cries during her breakdowns. After a year of giving my all, I'm crushed and questioning if it's time to walk away. This is not my first post about this relationship on this account, but the title really sums it up. Everything I do seems insufficient for my girlfriend, and as I have increased my efforts, she has raised the frequency of our arguments and appears even more unhappy with me. I apologize for the lengthy post. I attempted to create a concise summary, but even that feels a bit long. Summary: I cannot handle my girlfriend's emotional breakdowns and her constant accusations that I do not love her enough or contribute enough. I work hard to show my love. I buy her flowers and her favorite drinks regularly, pick her up from work, drive her to various places, and so on. However, the more I do, the more she insists that I do not do enough. She seems to expect that I should buy her more like jewelry, clothing, a car, and a house. Even if I wanted to provide all those things, I am unable to afford them. Honestly, I feel frustrated with how little income I have generated from my business. Despite this, I have been paying 50% of our expenses and taking her on dates. She has grown tired of waiting for me to achieve success, even though I contribute my fair share. She refuses to acknowledge that her breakdowns are problematic, believing that all issues fall squarely on me. If she has an emotional outburst, sobbing and telling me that I hate her for not buying her more items, she asserts that it is entirely my fault for hurting her. I am in pain, feeling hurt, and I do not know how to move forward. Context. For context, we moved into a shared house about 8 months ago and spent 6 months in a difficult bedroom situation. It felt like hell, and we fought often, but we both attributed it to the intolerable living conditions. In December, I secured us a wonderful single-bedroom apartment in an ideal location, at a great price in a practically new building. Since this place has been our dream for quite some time, we can no longer use the living conditions as an excuse for our arguments. The first 2 months in our new home were challenging. She complained about everything from dishes to laundry, leading to arguments occurring approximately twice a week. Although it was tough, I recognized the need to improve in these areas, and I worked to address these issues. Now she seems to have run out of things to nitpick. However, our arguments have not ceased. If anything, they have intensified. Now she continually berates me, calling me a failure, saying I do not love her enough or contribute enough, that I do not earn sufficient money, and that I do not buy her enough things. She claims to love me too much because she is giving too much, while I am not reciprocating adequately. She fails to appreciate the time I dedicate to her or the effort I invest in our relationship. What she values most are the physical gifts I provide, and she wants more. Finances. I am an entrepreneur, and to be frank, my financial situation is not ideal, which forces me to live frugally. I have not yet figured out how to create a consistent income. I may make a sale or two, but then I can go a month or two without additional income, and it is extremely challenging. Despite these difficulties, I still contribute my fair share financially, and I am honestly quite tired of her constantly pointing out my financial shortcomings. We split our rent 50-50. Regarding personal expenses, I cover the utilities, internet, and fuel costs. I own my own vehicle, and I pick her up from work 2 to 3 times a week, as well as drop her off at university and pick her up another 2 to 3 times weekly. I purchased us a Costco membership to save some money, and so far the food expenses appear to be manageable. When we go on a date approximately once every month or 2 weeks, I typically pay for most of it, although I often have to fight with her to do so, which is frankly exhausting. She covers the food since she enjoys cooking and insists on using certain ingredients. which costs about the same as my contributions for utilities, internet, and fuel each month. She insists that we eat out once a week, despite my belief that it is not necessary due to our budgetary constraints, which I have expressed to her. She pays for our Sunday meals out because she genuinely wants to dine out. As for gifts from me, I buy her flowers frequently when I pick her up. There are usually flowers on our table, so likely twice a month depending on how quickly they wilt, and I make an effort to buy her favorite boba tea on a semi-regular basis. I always purchase gifts for special occasions and generally take her out for relevant events, such as Valentine's Day and our anniversary. Core issue. Essentially, she constantly asks me how long she needs to wait for me to become successful, as she wants me to buy her more items, and she believes I am not currently doing enough. She has frequent breakdowns over what I consider trivial matters, like when we do not visit every place she wants on a date or I do not take sufficient pictures. During these breakdowns, she strives to hurt me emotionally, and while I try to remain stoic and loving, I am really affected by her hurtful comments made last night, which I will not detail further as she said many painful things regarding our anniversary date. Last night she broke down again, the fourth time in 7 days, expressing her frustration about my financial situation and lamenting that I do not buy her more items or care for her adequately. She added, "I know you will tell me that you do buy me boba tea and flowers, but I want more." She equates the monetary expenditure of a boyfriend on his girlfriend with his love for her. At what point will she recognize all that I do for her, that I genuinely care for her? I already pick her up, drop her off, buy her flowers, attempt to take her out on dates at least once a month, and I generally purchase a significant amount for major occasions. For instance, I got her a monitor, keyboard, and mouse for her birthday. I sincerely want to care for her and strive to demonstrate my love for her whenever possible. I grew up in a household where my parents sometimes did not even buy birthday gifts and rarely went on dates or exchanged gifts. Consequently, I am unaccustomed to someone demanding such a high level of material goods in a relationship. None of the other women I have dated had these expectations. My friends' girlfriends value the time spent together, and when I shared with them how my girlfriend desires all of these physical items, they looked at me in disbelief and suggested that something is amiss. She frequently tells me about her friend receiving various gifts from her boyfriend, but I know that guy since he is an excellent entrepreneur and a friend of mine. His business generates over $40,000 a month, allowing him to spend a couple of $1,000s monthly on his girlfriend without a second thought. Additionally, he is a few years older than I am. Unfortunately, I cannot compare myself to him. She even mentioned last night how the guys on TikTok do certain things that I do not do. I responded, "You realize those are staged, correct?" To which she replied, "Yes, I know, but I still want that." My perspective. I am utterly worn out. I have spent the last year striving to make my startup work and it has essentially failed. I now have some leads on contract work, which I am exploring since I know I can earn income more reliably in that area with lower risk. However, even if I were to start earning good money, I doubt it would change our issues. I learned long ago that material possessions do not fill emotional voids. If I start buying her more items, what prevents her from becoming accustomed to that and subsequently expecting even more? At this point, I genuinely contemplate taking a job in another city and leaving. I am in pain, feeling hurt, and believing that nothing I do will suffice. I have received an invitation to apply for a position with a well-respected company in another city, and this situation has made me quite tempted to submit an application. She is genuinely a good person. She cooks for me and wants me to succeed. We generally have a fulfilling sexual relationship. She enjoys buying me gifts, and I truly appreciate her thoughtfulness, like when she purchased a dash cam for our anniversary because I kept mentioning that I should acquire one. Nonetheless, she is too naive and immature, and I think I can no longer cope with it. I do not believe any reasonable adult would complain that their boyfriend only buys flowers regularly, picks them up from work, drives them wherever they wish, pays half of shared expenses, buys gifts for special occasions, and takes them out on dates 1 to 2 times a month. I simply do not comprehend what her expectations are. She continues to break down at night before going to bed, requiring me to console her for hours before she can fall asleep, and this is negatively affecting my ability to complete tasks. It makes me feel awful because she never apologizes for her behavior, and if I manage to convince her that she may be partly responsible, she plays the victim card and states, "It is all my fault, it is my fault," to which I have to respond, "No, it is not, dear," and she just keeps crying. There is a lot of trauma involved, and understandably she has good reasons to avoid admitting fault, as her parents were physically abusive whenever she made a mistake. Nevertheless, it does not change the fact that she is in a constant state of emotional distress, blaming me for it and expecting me to provide endless consolation until she feels that I understand how I have caused her emotional state. I do not want to take her out on dates anymore because she is sure to find fault. She expressed disappointment that our anniversary date, which I planned and executed, did not meet her expectations. She wanted a fancy restaurant, even though I had a lovely restaurant reserved that she likes. When we arrived there, she insisted on going to get burgers instead, so we complied. I genuinely do not know if I can handle this any longer. She is wearing me down. It has now been a full year, and while I once envisioned marrying her because she is kind-hearted, compassionate, great with children, and a good cook, I recently experienced a vivid thought. I could not marry her, as she will continue to demand more and express dissatisfaction with everything I do. I used to perceive her as somewhat emotionally unstable but still respectful. Lately, I feel disrespected and unappreciated, and I refuse to accept that. We have signed a lease with 9 months remaining. I cannot simply leave. Additionally, I genuinely do not want to leave this apartment. I love living here aside from the tumult of this relationship. It seems that now that we have a proper lease and cannot blame external circumstances, she has intensified her criticisms of me, escalating her emotional outbursts and generally making my life intolerable. Questions, advice, please. 1. Am I not doing enough in this relationship to satisfy her expectations? 2. Is this my fault because I am not generating sufficient income? She frequently tells me that I am inadequate because I fail to earn enough to provide her with gifts, jewelry, a house, a car, clothing, etc., and perhaps that is accurate. 3. I am accustomed to dealing with yelling and tantrums directed at me, so I cannot determine whether this behavior is typical and if I should tolerate it, or if it is something I should escape from. Any assistance would be very much appreciated. I apologize for the length of this post. Story 3. I forgave my boyfriend's betrayal after his childhood trauma drove him to cheat. I never wanted to hurt you, he sobbed, while I realized I had to balance my healing and his. Can love truly blossom from such hurt? This is going to be a bit of a long story. I apologize in advance. I have been in a toxic 3-year relationship in the past, which has left me with significant trust issues that I am still working to overcome. When I entered my current 10-month relationship, I was still healing but believed I was ready for a healthy one. However, I quickly realized that my past baggage was affecting my current relationship. I found myself constantly checking my boyfriend's phone, obsessively searching for signs of betrayal, even though there was no evidence. After some time, he told me that I needed to stop, as it was damaging to both him and myself. That is when I recognized I had a problem and began therapy to address my trust issues and self-sabotaging behavior. I am proud of how far I have come. My boyfriend has noticed and praised my progress, especially since he was aware of what I had experienced in my previous relationship. He and I took things slow when we first met. During the first 2 months after we connected on Hinge, we had no physical intimacy at all, not even a kiss, which helped build trust. I even opened up to him about my past, explaining that I wanted to ensure I was with someone who had the right intentions. Over time, he demonstrated that he cared for me for who I am, not just for my body, which felt refreshing compared to my past experiences. Things were going well at first. I felt truly loved and safe for the first time, but I also harbored a nagging fear of getting hurt again. What we had seemed too good to be true, which I shared with him. Before I started therapy, there was a day when I felt so loved by him that I began to cry, expressing my fear of experiencing heartbreak again so soon after my previous relationship. I didn't think I was healed enough to be in a healthy relationship. After hearing me say this, he started crying and had a full-blown anxiety attack. This was the first of many I would witness from him. At that moment, he had already fallen in love with me, and the thought of me leaving terrified him. Over time, I noticed signs of trauma in him as well. He struggled to open up about it, often becoming overwhelmed and having anxiety attacks when he tried. I felt left in the dark for much of our relationship, unsure of how to help him. At the same time, I tried to encourage him to make positive changes for himself, such as cutting down on alcohol, stopping vaping, smoking less marijuana, prioritizing other activities over video games, and seeking therapy. However, despite his agreement to change, he never followed through. It was all talk and no action, causing our communication to break down. We had a particularly bad argument at the end of October, which culminated in me saying that if he wanted to break up, I would understand because I had lied to him about how much time had passed between my previous relationship and when I met him. I did not realize at the time how much worse that would worsen the situation in his mind. He began to cry harder and told me that breaking up had never crossed his mind and asked if I wanted to give up on us so easily. At the time, I did not know, but this argument, along with other issues we were encountering, would initiate the downward spiral of our relationship. 2 weeks ago, I succumbed to the urge to look through his phone, even though I had worked hard to stop doing so and learn to trust him. I could not help myself and found evidence that he had been unfaithful. I confronted him, and after initially denying it, he admitted it. He had cheated on me twice with a woman who worked in a store right next to his job, both times after we had been fighting and hadn't been intimate for a while. He explained that he had been drinking heavily, which was the case nearly every night since that major argument where I had confessed to lying to him. He drank to the point of practically blacking out, which led him to make poor choices. They had hooked up twice before I knew him when he first moved to the state and started his new job. He claimed he was not attracted to her in the slightest, but he was lonely, did not know anyone in the area, and succumbed to her desperation for attention when she constantly visited him and flirted with him at work. She continued this behavior even after we started dating, despite knowing he had a girlfriend but did not care. In moments of weakness, he succumbed to his demons and her temptation. There was no intimacy at all during the times they were together. It was quick, and during the two occasions he had hooked up with her while we were dating, he wanted to remain as detached from the reality of the situation as possible and did not allow her into his apartment as he had before we began dating. He restricted the locations of their encounters to her car in the parking garage of his apartment complex. He told me he had no idea why he did it. He did not want to cheat, but he felt he had no control over his actions and was deeply disgusted by what he had done, even vomiting afterward. What followed was an emotional breakdown for both of us. He shared that he had severe abandonment issues stemming from his childhood. He attempted to explain this trauma to me multiple times throughout our relationship, but every time he tried, he would break down and have an anxiety attack as if he was physically unable to discuss the trauma. Finally, 10 months into our relationship, he could open up to me and be vulnerable. It is unfortunate that it took such a betrayal for him to do so. From his childhood, he has experienced feelings of abandonment and being unwanted. He was brought into this world by accident, with neither of his parents wanting to care for him. His family did not pay him much attention, and his long-term ex-girlfriend had cheated on him and taken his cat. Both his parents were also serial cheaters, so he grew up believing it was a normal behavior. All the people he had loved in his life had left him. As someone who also has mental health issues, I can understand how much trauma can alter a person's thought processes. Both times he cheated on me were after his trauma had been triggered by our arguments, decreased intimacy, and led him to sabotage our relationship through infidelity. Before this, he had never cheated and always claimed he would never do so because he understood the pain caused by cheating, given his experiences with his parents' infidelities and the pain of being cheated on by his ex-girlfriend. However, like me, he thought our relationship and connection were amazing and too good to be true, and he feared the heartbreak that would follow if he invested his entire heart and effort into the relationship and did what he knew he must do to be a good boyfriend. He claimed he had purposely not put his all into being a good boyfriend and doing the things I had asked and pleaded for because he was afraid I would reject and abandon him at his best. Therefore, he was protecting himself by giving me only minimal effort so that if I left him, it would hurt him less. He asserts that, due to his trauma in childhood, his mind convinced him that his only option after all the arguments we were having was to self-sabotage and cheat on me, thereby ruining the relationship by his own actions before I could break up with him and abandon him. Despite his betrayal, he assured me he would not do it again and has already returned to therapy, showing signs of improvement as a boyfriend. In the 2 weeks since, he has been making a genuine effort to improve, and I have chosen to forgive him and stay. He is showing up for me in ways he had not before, being more open and honest. I believe that by staying and demonstrating that I will not leave him, even after he committed the worst act he possibly could against me, can help him feel secure and begin to heal. However, I also recognize that being in a relationship with someone who has deep-rooted abandonment issues can be challenging, and I need advice on how to proceed. I love him and want to help him heal, but I also want to protect myself from being hurt again. How do I balance supporting him while maintaining my own emotional well-being in this situation? I have never been involved with or known anyone with abandonment issues, so any advice would be appreciated. Thank you in advance. He is presently in therapy, I am in therapy, and we are going to begin couples therapy together as well. I have also read that relationships that reconcile after infidelity often become stronger than before, and I can honestly see that happening between us. He is practically a different person now. He is open with me, honest, vulnerable, and significantly better at communication. He is treating me much better. It is unfortunate that it took his infidelity to reach this point, but he states that this has been the wake-up call he needed. Seeing how hurt I was has caused him additional pain and given him the motivation he needed to genuinely want to heal his trauma and become a better person, not only for me but also for himself. I have already forgiven him because I understand that he has been through a great deal and recognize how difficult it is to not have complete control over one's thoughts and mental processes. He loves me even more for staying despite everything, and I honestly believe I love him more, although part of me still feels anger towards him for cheating and hurting me, because he is trusting me enough to be this vulnerable and share something only his therapist and parents know. He did not even disclose this trauma to his long-term ex-girlfriend, even when she tried to get him to. He had never been motivated to heal until being with me, and I think I was placed in his life to guide him towards that healing while he was put in mine to help open my heart and teach me to be more forgiving and patient. Summary: my boyfriend, M22, has abandonment issues and cheated on me F21. I forgive him but need advice on how to manage a relationship with someone who has abandonment issues.